Hello, and welcome to this very special edition of Tony Stone's Chatroom podcast with, yes, yours truly, Tony Stone, as usual, here at the Rubix Drum Studios. And drum is the clue as to who my special guest is on this particular podcast. And I'm delighted to welcome none other than the living legend that is Mr. Harvey Mason. Welcome to the chat room, Harvey.
It's great to be here, Tony. What a cool atmosphere here.
It is, isn't it?
Oh yeah, Rubik's drum room is happening.
Which is why I always like to do the podcast here.
Oh, yeah, this is a perfect setting.
Absolutely. Now, where do we start with you? Where do we start with your life and your career? We've got such a limited time as well to be able to talk to you. I suppose at the beginning, how old were you? Can you remember how old you were when you first got into music and when you first then got into drums?
As far as my formal drumming education began at 7.
7?
Yes. Prior to that, though, I was crawling around and playing with spoons and pots and pans on the floor, and that's where my interest first was recognized by my mother, who said, "You should be playing drums," you know. And so people would come over and I'd play some stuff with forks. But I'm a product of public school music education.
Okay.
So had it not been for public music and department in schools, I probably may not be here.
Okay.
So they offered different classes at that time, and of course, I just took drum lessons right away.
What was the appeal of drums?
Well, I
for
guess
you?
the fact that I can't say it was just a gift. It was just there, and I was playing on pots and pans. I just had this rhythm thing going on. I was born with this rhythm, this need to bang on things and play rhythms. So I mean, from my earliest beginnings, I can remember playing on oatmeal boxes, and they'd soon break, but then there'd be another one because there were so many kids in the family.
How many were there of you?
There were 8 of us total. I was the oldest of 8.
All this effect. And are you the only musician in the family?
Everyone played an instrument, and we had a choir. We sang. So
Oh,
everyone played something, but the only ones that became pros were me and my brother, who's about 3 away, and he was with Marvin Gaye and Mandrill
oh
and a
wow.
couple of those bands, and now he directs a church choir because he graduated from the same college I did, New England Conservatory, with a degree in music education, and so he directs a church choir, and he's still a musician.
Cool.
He was a trumpet player.
Trumpet player.
Yeah.
Now, when you, I guess, start out on a music career, I'm a non-musician, but I suppose you have dreams, you have goals that you hope to be able to do and you hope to be able to achieve in a career. Now that you've got to the point in your career where you are at, how has that panned out to what you first were dreaming of as a youngster coming into the business all those years ago?
Well, I began working when I was probably 13, 13 and a half, started playing bar mitzvahs and weddings and playing some club dates and things like that, and really enjoyed it, and then gravitated to, or rather just transitioned into playing in the clubs and playing in nightclubs and meeting all the great musicians coming through. And I happened to be fortunate enough to play in a great jazz club where everyone came through.
Which was?
It was called the Wonder Gardens
Ah,
in Atlantic City. It was a very famous spot. And I mean, from Miles to Cannonball to everyone came through. And I was in a band that worked from 4 in the morning to 10 in the morning.
wow.
When they stopped playing, then I would begin playing. So I got to meet a lot of the guys and the drummers, and I saw the lifestyle. And at that time, coming from such a deprived background, it didn't appeal to me to do what they were doing, which was traveling around. They all seemed like they were very transient. There was not much. They didn't seem to have much money, and there seemed to be a lot of. I was in the dressing rooms. I saw a lot of discord between guys, and so it didn't appeal to me that part. But I loved playing it, and people were giving me money to play, and that was amazing. But I thought I wanted to do something that was a little more honorable or more respected. So I had my eye on being a lawyer, and I was going to go to law school. But then I read an article in Downbeat about studio musicians, and one in particular, Larry Bunker, who was a percussionist who used to work with Bill Evans.
Oh yeah.
And I read this article, and I saw the pictures of the guys sitting in there with shirts and ties on, and it described what they did. And I said, that looks great. I mean, those guys, they're respectable, So, which is a funny way of putting it. But that appealed to me, playing all the different kinds of music and not knowing what kind of music you were going to play that day, and that you controlled your own career.
Because that's kind of another thing I wanted to ask you as well. If you had to explain to some of our viewers that perhaps don't know who Harvey Mason is or haven't come across Harvey Mason before, how would you sum up what your music is?
What my music is, well, what my career was playing in the studios, which I go to work every day, pretty much every day, and work with people playing music for commercials, music for television shows, music for movies, music for records, and for live shows. That's what I did for 20 years or more. And I didn't want to go on the road, and that was my goal, and I achieved that goal. So that was it. But then I was waylaid when Clive Davis asked me to make some records, and I made records for him, and that's how I ended up becoming popular. But I was perfect, just to be perfectly happy, just to be a session guy.
Yeah.
You know, that was my goal. And I got there, and then this other thing came my way, and you know, it's kind of, if you pay attention, things come your way, and you have to figure out which way to go. You know.
Yep.
So I ended up taking that route of writing songs and creating my own brand as far as music goes.
Now, when I introduced you, I said you were a drummer. That's only really half the story, isn't it? Because you're also a producer, is that right, as well?
I produced a lot, yes.
So talk to us a little bit about that.
Early on, drummers make very good producers, by the way. And because we listen to music in a very, very special way, we hear everything in order to make it work. Because we're the engines of most music.
Yeah.
So we get in the habit of hearing and listening to everything. And a good point, a person to think about is look at Maurice White, who created Earth, Wind & Fire, drummer. You know, and other drummers, Narada was producing Aretha and a lot of these other people. So drummers tend to be, and I very early on became interested in producing other people, especially after I started making my records. And I was working with other great producers and saw how they do it and knew that I had the ears to kind of do that. So I just went and produced some people, and it was fun.
So do you call yourself a musician or producer? If you had to pick one of the two, which would you?
I'd say I'm a musician. I'm a musician.
You're a musician first and foremost.
I'm a musician first and foremost, yeah.
Okay.
And producer is something that came out of that, you know. But a producer may or may not be a musician.
Okay.
Some producers aren't musicians.
Now, tell us some of the names of artists and people that you've performed with and been part of the bands over the years, because I was reading your biog the other day, and I mean, the list of names, Bob James, and is that right? And Foreplay and all these kinds of people. Is that right? How did you get into all that scene?
Well, I think once you make a record and it has some notoriety, then people want that sound on their record, so they call you. And I didn't have a manager or anything, but my number was very available, and people would hear me on a different record and they'd call me. So that's how it spreads. That's how it ends up working out, you know. And that's how it worked out for me. It was just one thing after another. And I was always available, and I'd book the time. And if I booked the time, I would show up. I would never, you know, cancel somebody to go to someone else, you know. So I tried to keep a lot of integrity in what I was doing, but it was just a snowball effect. I remember when I first started, I was happy just to have one session a month, I'd say. If I could have just one a month. And then if I could have two a month. And then if I could get one in a week. You know, and then if I could get two in a week. And I got to the point where I was doing like 21, 22, 23 in a week. So, and it was just very natural and just moved ahead. And I enjoyed every bit of it because I was working with some of the best musicians in the world. So that was my calling card, you know, being a chameleon. And then I happened to work with Herbie and
Herbie Hancock, of course.
Herbie Hancock, of course, and that brought me a lot of notoriety in the jazz world and the crossover world, because that was a big record. And people started calling me Chameleon because I was a co-writer of that song with Herbie too. So it's just been a pretty marvelous career.
Now, going back to your 13-year-old self, again, starting out,
right,
performing and jamming, if you could meet up with him, would there be any advice that you would give your younger self to follow or let things grow organically? What would you say to him?
Well, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't say anything. I mean, I was pretty fortunate, you know. I practiced, I studied hard, I practiced hard, I had a goal, and I was driven. I was driven no end to really practice and be good. And I had so much passion, and I loved music, and still to today. So I don't know what I would say, except if except be passionate, really love what you do, love all kinds of music, and it's not just about one kind of music. Be passionate about music in general. Learn everything you can learn about music. I mean, writing, reading, writing, and the arithmetic, so to speak. But and then learn how to get along with people is important too. And really appreciate people and appreciate what people do, and don't be afraid to really interact with people.
Cool.
I think those things are, and then integrity as far as doing business with people, and being straight ahead and showing up on time, and all those things are so important. And
Being a professional.
being a professional, that's being a professional, and then being a person as well, being a regular person. Because I don't consider myself any different than anybody else. Some people want to put you on a pedestal, but I'm just one of.
And how do you find that? How do you cope with that sort of the adulation, with the fan aspect to?
I just treat it. If I'm making somebody happy, then it's okay. If they're really excited about what I do and they really, then I'm good with them doing it. But I don't take it to make my head crazy, because I realize that just as easy as I'm sitting here, it could be the other guy who was across the street. It could be him just as easy. So I don't know how that all works in the scheme of things, but I end up being here, and I don't think that, well, I should be some god because I'm sitting here. I don't think that way at all.
You don't? Cool. Now, also, obviously, the music industry has changed a lot over the time that you've been in the business.
Oh, yeah.
Has the introduction, do you think, of the internet, of the World Wide Web, made it easier, made it harder? Has it brought different elements to the industry that perhaps you didn't have all those years ago? How has it changed?
Well, it's definitely changed the business. It's made it a lot more easier for other people, the internet, and also technology for people to create music that aren't musicians. So
how do you feel about that as a musician? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing?
I get some ideas from people that have no idea about what they're doing. So I gather ideas from that. In other words, they kind of break the mold and go in other ways, and that's very interesting because it opens things up. Because you can get to the point where you're just like this. When you're in school, you learn about writing, you learn about lower interval limits and don't parallel fifths and thirds, and you're not supposed to do that. They do all that stuff and not even knowing about it. So you learn that you can break the rules. When you've learned the rules, then you can break the rules, and they do it without even knowing it. So. I think it's a good thing. I try and stay open to all kinds of music and listen to what people are doing, and can use it. If I put it in my vocabulary, hopefully some of it will come out.
What's the most recent piece of music that you've been listening to chill out, not related to your work?
Well, the other night I went to the concert of the London Symphony Orchestra, and that was amazing. They played Shostakovich, they played Beethoven, They played Messiaen, they played Ives, they played, let's see, who else did they play? John Williams. It was fantastic. I love that music. And I played with them last year. I played timpani with the London Symphony Orchestra. We played Holt's Planets, which was a major thrill for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, yesterday, or the day before we recorded this particular podcast, you were asked on another interview about your inspirations. And you said something that rather interested me in response to the question. You said that you get inspired a lot by today's younger musicians coming through. But I'd like to just go back perhaps a little bit to your earlier days. Who were your influences, if I could maybe rather than say inspiration, growing up, coming through? Who really pricked your ears? Who really made you go, oh, wow, that's really cool, way back when?
Well, I was into music. I was listening to music and making the music, listening to what felt great. And there was a drummer by the name of Art Taylor who died years ago, but he lived in Europe. He lives from the U.S., but he moved here. And he was a really sensitive drummer that was on a lot of jazz records, but not very many people knew him. But everything that I had in my recording, all the bins I had, he was on a lot of those records, with John Coltrane, Gene Ammons and those older records that I really had, and I didn't have a lot of money to spend a lot of money on records with. So when I had a record, I absorbed it completely. I knew all the solos, I could sing them and everything. But he was on a lot of those records, and the one thing I noticed that he never overplayed. He always played just the right thing, and it swung so hard. So I really became to appreciate that you really have to swing.
Do you like the art of brushes?
I love the art of brushes. I love, if you're a drummer, and you're all around drummer, you must play brushes. I played with George Shearing, to play brushes. You know George Shearing, right?
Of
He's
course.
from London, and I played 85% of the gig was with brushes. And I played with Earl Garner, and Earl Garner I played sticks and brushes, but brushes. So I had a really good education of playing brushes, you know.
Now, before we kind of start to wind down the podcast, we can keep going for a little bit longer, which is great because there's a few more things I want to ask you. You're in London because you're actually going to be at Ronnie Scott's, the famous, iconic worldwide jazz club, Ronnie Scott's in Soho on Saturday, the 14th of July. Now, tell us a little bit about that, why you're there, what you're going to be doing, who you're going to be doing it with.
Well, I've always enjoyed playing there. It's like you say, it's an iconic club here in London. And an associate of mine, Vince Boygo, said that he suggested that I should play Funk in a Mason Jar, go back to that and play concerts and everything. And I said, that's pretty interesting. But I realized long ago that music was very popular here in London. So much so that I said, I'll try it. Let's try it.
So when was the last time you played that in public?
I never played that live.
You've never played it live?
I never played it live.
So this is going to be a world exclusive?
Yes, and I'm playing with English musicians as well.
Oh, wow. Can you name check the band?
Just a couple of the guys. Orifo is going to be playing bass, and Mark James guitar. That's all. That's all.
Mark
I can
James,
tell you.
I can tell you, is a legend. He used to be in a band called Simply Red.
Yes.
And Mark is.
Oh
wow,
yeah. Oh yeah.
He's amazing.
So, I have to learn the names, but they're all great guys, and I'm looking forward. We're getting ready to rehearse in about a half an hour.
Fantastic. Absolutely wonderful. And I believe you're doing two sets.
2 shows on the 14th, 7:15 and 11:15.
But I believe it's sold out. Is that right?
It is. Yeah, thank you very much. It is. Yeah.
Oh, so even if you wanted to go, guys, I'm afraid it's probably not going to.
Next time.
Next time, and I'm sure there will be a next time after that as well. Now, if any of our viewers watching would like to get to know Harvey Mason a bit more, where's the best place that they can go and check you out, find out more about you? What's
I think on the web, harveymason.net.
HarveyMason.net.
Yes, and I have Facebook, which I'm not that active on, but I have Instagram as well. We try and keep it active, but I think those are the spots where you probably can, or look me up online. Wikipedia is not that accurate. To tell you
It's
the truth.
not.
I don't think so. No, it doesn't have as much stuff, and it's a very abbreviated bio. But I think the best bio is probably on my website, harveymason.net.
.net. That's fantastic. And you've been in London performing over many years, many times.
Yes, I've performed some of the big places, Royal Hall, and
Royal Albert Hall.
yes, and I've been here to record at a couple of famous studios here, and recorded at Real World at Peter Gabriel's studio.
Oh wow, yeah.
I did with Seal, did Kiss from a Rose. I did that album with him here in London. So
can I ask you, what, from being an American, particularly with jazz and the soul stuff, which is the home of the music America, what's the attraction for you coming to London? What makes you want to come and perform in London?
Well, first of all, for many years, musicians have migrated to Europe because they feel more appreciated. It's not like the overwhelming amount of music here that they get to the point where they get used to it. And they love hearing American musicians, and there's a certain excitement about really the art and the craft of playing music.
And
they seem to appreciate it more to me.
Do you think there is a difference between British audiences and American audiences, or are they similar, or how do you find?
Well, when it gets down to it, an audience, either they're into it or they're not, So the audiences here are very, very into it. But I'm saying that it seemed to be a little more open to a variety of music here. The United States is pumped in with, it's a lot of hype involved, and people seem to tend more to go and follow each other and go in trends more. I find here, and I find in Japan, that they seem to follow art a little bit more than just getting in line and finding a trend.
That's another little question I wanted to ask you before we go as well. In terms of the art of drumming, how do you think the craft of the art of drumming is? Has it changed much over the years? Is it still just a case of getting behind the kit and giving it your best? What makes the craft element of being a good drummer?
Well, the basics of playing drums has changed to me for most drummers, because Because of the advent of the internet and videos, kids are learning to play highly technically, extremely well. I mean, it's just amazing with the way they're playing now. And they're playing faster, louder, and harder, and I hear that all over the place.
I remember on a trip to New Orleans
Uh-huh.
one time, I was walking up the bank of the Mississippi and I suddenly heard this drumming. And as I got closer and closer, it was getting louder and louder. And I thought, who is this guy? And when I get up and I look and I watch, I stand, I realised a 13-year-old kid just drumming away on the bank of the Mississippi. I mean, jazz, but I mean, it was like, wow. And I mean, and do you find that keeps you on your toes as well with the youngsters coming through that they're
Well, I don't try and compete with them because I can't compete with them. But it keeps me interested and it keeps me motivated to keep playing and stay and it causes me to pay attention. I have to pay attention.
You have to pay attention.
Oh yeah, because things are moving and I don't want to be left. If I'm left behind, and then just the sense of even playing that much to me.
Right, now this podcast goes up and stays up, basically. So if anybody happens to be tuning in after the 14th of July 2018, have you got anything else coming up anywhere
Well,
that you would
I'm
like to give a
playing.
mention to?
I'm playing the Central Avenue Jazz Festival in Los Angeles on July 28th, and that's with my Chameleon Band, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Cool.
And that's an old festival. Central Avenue was a big hot spot for jazz going back to the late 40s and 50s. And everyone came through Central Avenue and played to a lot of clubs. And so they've kept this festival going for many, many years now. And I'm playing for the first time. We normally play the Hollywood Bowl, which is a big deal. But I'm playing this down in the community, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's about it right now that I have going on.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being our very special guest of the week. Wish you good fortune for Ronnie's and the upcoming festival. I'm sure you don't need it really.
Oh, absolutely.
know.
Always. It's always needed. And thank you for having me, Tony. It's been great. And I've enjoyed my time here and look forward to coming back many, many times.
And we look forward to seeing you back here as well. And so, from yours truly, Tony Stone, and my very special guest for this particular special edition of the podcast, the one and the only Harvey Mason. Thanks for watching. Yes, till the next time, from everyone here at the Rubix Drum Studio, happy chatting.